Hey everyone, and welcome to episode number 53 of The Kickabout. Ronaldo had a dream debut, and Arsenal finally got their season going. I'm your host, Chris.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Dan.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the show. And yes, I did say 53, screw you too. Welcome to Josh.
Hi.
So Fran is not with us for the next 2 weeks for she's away with work. So Josh has very kindly decided to step into the boots and fill the void.
Pleasure as always. Pleasure.
Right, well, as always, we are going to start with Dan. Dan the stat man.
So Salah became the 30th different player to score 100 Premier League goals. Can you name the other 29? No, I'm messing.
I was going to say, Jesus Christ, man, we're trying to keep the episode short this week.
Jesus wept. How long do you think we've got?
Only 4 players have reached the milestone in fewer appearances. Can you name the 4 players to do so?
I saw this posted on Facebook.
On Sky Sports.
Yeah. I need to try and remember who they were. Okay, right. Well, as always, we'll get to that later on in the show. Let's do a quick Fantasy League update, despite the fact that there are games still, there was a game still going on right now. Last time we checked, it was 3-1 to Everton.
Finished 3-1.
It finished 3-1. So there are points to be decided. I think, based on what we've seen, it is going to be a top 2 for me and you. Does that mean that everybody else in the league has to pay us 50 quid?
That'd be nice.
So yeah, Dan is sitting pretty in first. I am second. I suspect that Pete will be third and Dan will be fourth, based on who they've got in their team.
I'm probably 27th at the minute.
23rd, mate. Have you got any Everton players? You do, but Calvert-Lewin, he's not playing.
That's right. St. Maximin will have the points on the bench anyway.
That's true. Yeah, you'll get an extra 5 from there, so you'll creep up. So yeah, you're sort of sitting average mid-table.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
It is.
Wouldn't you like to see Newcastle in mid-table?
Don't start. That's why you got me on now, isn't it? Of all times to get me back on.
I can promise you this was just a coincidence. Under no circumstances did I look at the fixtures and think, let's get Shearer on because it's Man United Newcastle.
Yeah. Okay.
But we did.
Yeah.
And Man United Newcastle happened. And we've got 2 more Kickabout derbies coming, haven't we? Because we've got Man United West Ham next weekend and then midweek in the Cup afterwards, which I'll be honest, I'm not looking forward to with Ronaldo's record against West Ham. So I thought we'd start with this game just so that you could get everything about Ronaldo out of your system early doors and we could just sort of deal with it. So, but first of all, why don't you tell us what you did to your fantasy league team before this game?
Yeah, I bottled it last minute and took Ronaldo back out my team.
So I spent all week convincing Dan that I wasn't 100% certain that Ronaldo was going to start. I thought that because he was at home, I thought maybe they would milk the the coming on and the applause.
And I was the opposite. I was so confident. I was like, it's Ronaldo. He's not going to bench him. Like, you don't bench Cristiano Ronaldo. And then right at the last minute, my nerves got the best of me. I thought, I don't want a striker of that much money just sat on my bench.
And secretly, I put him in the team. So I got the points and he didn't.
Luckily, well, I swapped him out for Lukaku, who also got a brace. So
yeah, not too bad.
And I captained Lukaku, captained Antonio, got -1.
Yeah, that was a bit of an oversight. That didn't. No, I mean, and he's done me well so far this season, so he's allowed 1. But anyway, it ended up being business as usual for Ronaldo, didn't it? Yeah. How would you rate his return?
I mean, they weren't the prettiest goals, but I
don't know. The second one was
good, but it was poor goalkeeping, sorry, mate.
Yeah, I feel like there's going to be a constant theme and it's just going to be...
Don't worry, we'll get to Newcastle bashing.
I don't bash them too much.
I mean, if you've heard any of our episodes about Arsenal early in the season, you wait until we get to Newcastle in a bit.
But he's your, 3rd choice goalkeeper?
Yeah, I mean, he's probably tied 3rd with the other 3rd keeper, to be honest with you. He's got 4 keepers now in the 23-man squad.
Yeah.
One's injured, one's coming back from COVID, and he spent the whole last year on loan to Swansea. So he's untested at Premier League levels, chucked him in the deep end and just got the benefit of the doubt.
Exactly. I mean, fixture-wise, it could have been better to maybe not come up against United with Ronaldo returning. It was almost like this perfect storm, wasn't it, of everything aligning. And in the end, it was inevitable.
In terms of Ronaldo's goals, I mean, the positioning for that first goal, for him to be there and no one else even thought about sort of closing it.
I mean, they highlighted that match of the day, didn't they? They showed you the fact that everybody else just stood still and Ronaldo was the only one who gambled, and that does separate the the top players from the average
from
players.
the boys.
And then obviously the second one as well. I mean, one of the things that I'll be honest, I questioned about Ronaldo coming back was, could he still have the same impact on the Premier League, which is obviously a superior league to the Italian league and the Spanish league, in my opinion. But for the second goal, I mean, he's not lost a huge amount of pace, has he?
No, he sprung through, didn't he?
I mean, he was touching 20 miles an hour when he was running. And there aren't many players in the Premier League who can run at that sort of speed.
Yeah.
Still got the old famous step overs.
Yeah, I love that he threw that in early, didn't he? So, I mean, I want to sort of ask a question to you both here. We touched last week on, was it last week or maybe the week before, about when Ronaldo joined, about what has happened to Juventus over the last couple of years that he's been there. The statistics show, as we said, that the rest of the team has dropped off in terms of shots created, dribbles into the box, that sort of thing. Man United, whether you like Solskjaer or not, over the last 3 or 4 years have steadily improved. I know they're not, and Dan, you've got your question marks over whether Ollie will ever get to that top level, but there's no doubt that you have improved and the team has got better and you've improved the quality. Yeah. So does Ronaldo coming in represent a risk to that? So let's say he stays for the full 3 years, because it's 2 years with an option of 1, isn't it? I think. Yeah. So let's say he stays for that 3 years. You get some success, whatever that looks like. When he leaves, do you think there's going to be another drop again, almost like when Fergie left? Do you think that almost subconsciously everyone's going to be so expectant on Ronaldo to deliver now? That in 2 years' time, is it all going to, oh shit, he's gone now, someone else has got to step up?
I don't know. I think it will definitely improve us as a team. Not just him being there, but he'll improve everybody else. I think he'll be amazing for Greenwood. I think Greenwood's already developing unreal. And I'm just hoping that we don't dither about when he does leave. I hope that we do move for a Haaland, or I think Haaland probably be somewhere else by then. But
I think he'll be at City.
Yeah, but maybe a new up and coming striker. I hope we don't just sort of sit with our hands in our pockets and don't do anything about it. We'll need to move for a striker, because to go from Cristiano Ronaldo to Martial just isn't gonna work.
No, I mean, in terms of starting 11s, you're arguably now one of the strongest, if not the strongest in the league.
I mean, I know City are still scoring, but when you look at the fact that City haven't got a striker, I think if we had a decent CDM, we'd probably have one of the strongest starting 11s.
Do you think now, though, Josh, that the CDM argument is almost now irrelevant? That you bring someone in like Ronaldo, that talisman who's going to get you so many goals. Do you think that, especially with they've got Varane in as well, do you think that CDM is not as important as it was last season?
No, I think it's still important to the degree that if you've got players like Ronaldo, Rashford, Greenwood, Cavani, Pogba, Bruno, they're going to be top end of pitch, creating you all those goals. But if you haven't got that anchor to help support and break down the play, that's just going to give more pressure onto the defence, onto the keeper. Then as many goals as they may score up there, they're more likely to concede, even with Maguire and Varane at the back. So I still think that's going to be potentially a problem area. But like I said, I don't think there's anything wrong with Matic, with those players out in front of him. If he can just anchor around, do the Makelele role as it was announced to Kante, but if he can just go around, shield that kind of in-between phase, I don't think there's an issue with having a player like that in there.
Do you think that Matic right now is your strongest player in that position?
Oh, definitely. I think it's a shame. If we had a 28-year-old Matic, I think we'd be flying. I think the problem is he's just a little bit on the wrong side of his career now, and he's sort of going downhill, and I don't know if he can last the full 90 minutes week in, week out.
Yeah.
Fred and McTominay for me just aren't CDMs.
McTominay, is he injured right now? Because I've not seen him involved much.
I think it's a COVID thing. I don't know if it's an injury thing or a COVID thing.
Yeah, I mean, Fred's, in the last season or so, he went through phases where actually everyone said, to be fair, he's putting in a shift, he's doing some good things. He's now gone the other way again, and he's become a bit of a meme on the internet.
Yeah, and I keep seeing people say, no one works harder on the pitch than Fred. He's such a hard worker.
You need more than that.
I'm a hard worker. Doesn't mean I could play for United. Do you know what I mean?
This isn't school sports day. We don't get a medal.
Dan James played, mate. Yeah, so you've always got a chance.
Exactly.
Always got a chance.
If as a CDM, you're literally the sort of the centre of a clock. Like you take the ball from defence, give it to attack, and vice versa.
I like that analogy. That's very good.
Yeah.
Where'd you steal that from?
No, I was just made off.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
Stumbling.
Top punditry here. No, I do think that. I mean, what about? I know you said in the past that Van de Beek is a bit more of an advanced playmaker.
Yeah.
But do you think that maybe him and Matic could be the pairing?
Yeah, I'd love to see Van de Beek maybe even play as that number 6, to be honest. I think you've got to give him a chance. He can't do a worse job than Fred at the end of the day. So the bar is set very low.
But I guess you're in a point now where you can probably only get away with playing one CDM because of all the attacking talent you've got.
It would have to be Pogba as like the 8, the playmaker, and then you'd need like Matic, or if Van de Beek can do that. I mean, he had an interview with Rio Ferdinand recently, and he said that he can play like the 6 or the 8.
Right.
But Ollie only ever seems to bring him on for Bruno in the number 10 position, which is why he never plays, because Bruno never comes off.
Yeah.
And if Ollie only sees him as a number 10, it's completely pointless having him, because he never takes Bruno off.
It does surprise me that he can, because I still don't think that Solskjaer trusts any of those CDMs because of the amount he rotates them. Appreciate, sometimes it's forced upon him with injuries and whatnot, but when they're all fit, he often will switch between Fred, McTominay, Pogba. So it amazes me that he hasn't at any point really given Van de Beek a fair crack at the whip.
Yeah, it amazes me. Like when I watch Fred, like you say, there's so many memes and stuff about him. He must watch Fred and see how poor he is.
Yeah, against Southampton, he was dreadful.
Yeah, and like when I watch Van de Beek, I've not seen him have I know he's only played 10 minutes, 20 minutes here and there. I've not seen him have a bad 20 minutes, bad 10 minutes. So I don't know why he can't just give him a full 90, 2 games in a row, and see what he can do. Unless he is just shocking in training, I can't see what his problem with Van de Beek is.
I mean, how long do you think Van de Beek will leave it? I mean, he seems to be saying the right things in the media about, wanting to be there, wanting to play. But at the point in the career that he's at, he doesn't want to be sitting in this position for too much longer for his own career.
We've got a World Cup coming up. He's going to want to be in the Holland squad. He wasn't selected for their recent international games, and he had to pull out from the Euros because of injury. So, he's not going to want to miss the World Cup. So I think if he's going to be left on the bench, annoyingly as well, like last week or week before, an reporter sort of said, what's happening with Van de Beek. And again, he just did the whole, he's going to be a really important player for us. I'm like, well, show it then.
It's literally like someone is behind Solskjaer, just with buttons, right? Press that one for that generic response. Yeah. That generic response for Lingard.
FIFA, where you just get 4 answers.
The cool answer each time, just to mellow out the media.
Morale up.
Chairman appreciation level. Speaking of chairmans, Glazer was there, wasn't he? Was it Avram Glazer?
Yeah.
First time ever? I don't know. I can't remember what they said.
Watching the cash come in from Ronaldo playing.
Do you
see how many celebrities were there as well?
Oh, God.
You had like Stormzy there. Ewan McGregor, I think, was there. Tons.
The Ronaldo factor.
Yeah.
It's like Lewis Hamilton at Formula 1. He's always got celebrity. He had Vin Diesel there at the weekend. Yeah. Just very, very quickly touching on Ronaldo again. One thing that I did quite like when I was watching the game, watched the highlights. One of the criticisms I used to have about Ronaldo when I was comparing him to Messi in the past was that Messi was. I've always thought that Messi was a far better team player, and one of the reasons I thought that was because Messi will happily give the goal to somebody else. He'll get involved in everything. Whereas Ronaldo, you often see him stropping because he doesn't get past the ball. Doesn't seem to really celebrate too much when one of his teammates scores. However, at the weekend, when both Lingard and Fernandes scored, I saw visible celebrations and happiness on Ronaldo's face when that happened. So I don't know whether it's just all because of this fairy tale and how amazing it was, and the fact he'd already scored 2 as well, which probably helped.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see. Similar to what Drogba was like at Chelsea. As he got into the later years, he mellowed, he cut out all the theatrics and became just this sort of gentleman of football almost. So it'd be interesting to see if that carries on with Ronaldo, because that'd be important for the young players as well.
Yeah, and I think like with Lingard, obviously, I showed you that picture of Lingard when he was, I don't know, like 12 and
That's cool.
Yeah, and I think that, but he probably knows quite a few of those players from the youth team. He probably knows like Rashford and sort of Lingard and all that from the youth teams and stuff, and obviously he played with Ollie. So it is I don't want to be like cliche, but it is kind of like he's now back with his family. Do you know what I mean? And he got
speaking of Vin Diesel. Speaking of Vin Diesel and family.
Fergie was there.
Yeah, I mean, it's well documented that Fergie had a big part in this. I mean, there's still part of me that is torn on the whole, would he have gone to City? What would have been the reaction, etc. Because Ronaldo is very, very driven by success and by personal goals, etc. And if when he turned around to Juventus and said, I want to leave, and Mendes also said the same thing, there's no way you say that if you haven't got a club lined up. There's no way that you gamble on Man United, who historically take ages to do transfers, for them to suddenly pipe up and come and get you. So I personally think that Man City were in for him, and it wasn't until Man United came in that he suddenly had his mind changed. I think he would have gone to City.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, have you seen Juventus since he left?
Not doing great, are they?
They've not won a single game.
Well, in a way, that's why I asked that question earlier about Ronaldo and when he leaves United in a few years.
Yeah, although, I mean, I think if we bring... All we need, like, if we can bring in someone in January or maybe at the end of the season, all we need is a CDM to make that team unreal.
That could be a dominant team for years to come.
The only problem is Pogba potentially leaving.
So I saw this week he wants to sign a new contract.
Of course he does. It's funny as well. Fran's we were watching Match of the Day earlier before we came over here. I'd already seen it, but she wanted to watch it. And she said to me, do you think it bothers Pogba that he's no longer like the sort of big celebrity at the club?
Do you not think that maybe eases a bit of pressure away from him now?
Maybe, yeah.
Now that Ronaldo's the guy.
Yeah.
Takes the media spotlight away, I think.
Yeah, I was just wondering what your opinions were.
I'll take Graham Souness' opinion away a little bit as well.
I can tell you one other player won't be happy, one other person won't be happy, and that's Mina Raiola. Because he's suddenly thinking, maybe he won't get as much money now, so he won't get the big payday. So just quickly then to the game. Obviously, Fernandes wanted to make sure that everyone remembered that he was still at Man United with that goal. Wonderful strike, pick of the bunch. And then a really good team goal finished off by Jesse Lingard. Now, so much has been said about Lingard and about his future and whether he stays or goes, and etc. Has he given Solskjaer a bit of a headache? Because he played really well for England, scored a couple of goals, granted the opposition were weak. But in all the times I've seen him come on, in the very small periods of time that he's had United, he's done a job. He looked really lively in this game when he came on and scored finished off a really good team goal. At some point, Solskjaer's got to think, right, if I want to keep him, I'm going to have to play him more. But at the same time, I still don't think he gets in that starting 11.
He doesn't. I mean, now we've just signed Sancho for 75 odd million. You can't be playing Lingard over Sancho. Greenwood's been unreal, and we want to keep developing Greenwood. There's 10 years apart from the two of them. So you've got to keep Greenwood in that team at the moment. Rashford's on the recovery, and I think Rashford's a better player than Lingard. Now we've got Ronaldo. We've got Bruno's never leaving that team. Lingard, I think, will be important in terms of like cup competitions.
Do you think that's enough for him, though?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's all he's going to be. He's going to be a cup player and bring him on in the last 10, 20 minutes. So I just can't... Surely he knew Sancho was coming. Surely he knew... I mean, obviously he wouldn't have known Ronaldo was coming, but I still, even if Ronaldo went there, he's not playing as a striker, is he? So
no, I mean, in all fairness, I have seen recently that one of the reasons he didn't want to come down to West Ham or move away wherever was family. That he doesn't want to pick up and move his family and his kids down somewhere else. Yeah. Now, he obviously has... at some point that decision might end up being made for him if he doesn't get much game time, and he might have to make that decision. But... I just wonder what Solskjaer thinks about Lingard at the moment, because, as you say, we've had the generic responses. Yeah. We've had he's a big part of the plans, etc. But as you say, when you've got a full squad, he's probably third or fourth choice off the bench.
I mean, I can see him starting tomorrow against Young Boys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's
and against us probably next week in the cup as well.
Yeah, potentially. But that's about as good as it's going to get. Even if he scores a hat trick, I still don't see him getting in, at the weekend ahead of Sancho, because you just can't, unless Sancho just plays really, really poor week in, week out. But I mean, it's going to take Sancho a couple of weeks to bed in. Mm-hmm. And I thought he was much better against Newcastle than he was against Wolves.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Right. Painfully, Josh, we have to now get to Newcastle.
Oh, yeah.
First of all, I just wanted to touch base on what's up with Callum Wilson. I wasn't aware that he was injured before the game. Obviously, he didn't play.
Yeah, he had a injury in the Southampton game, and he played the majority with an injury.
Right.
So
always a good thing to do for an injury-prone player is to keep playing through an injury. So do we know ETA on return?
I think it's one of those ones where he's going to be hoping that he's going to come back next week, but he probably shouldn't.
I heard that he wasn't going to be back next week. I heard it's more than likely he won't be back.
That's the thing. Steve Bruce will just say whatever he thinks is right and try and shield everybody away from the media. And
yeah, I guess the best thing to say he won't be, and then if he is, then it's good for you because they can.
You could argue also maybe a bit of mind games because who have you got next week?
Leeds, I think.
Oh, it's Leeds on Friday night, isn't it? I mean, you could argue maybe he's trying to fool Bielsa into planning for playing against Wilson, knowing full well that he's not going to be there.
Because that would be a good chance. I mean, Leeds defensively have been quite poor. And they're obviously without Strauch. I don't know. He says his name is Strauch.
Strike. Yeah, I don't know how you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it has been a rough start to the season. I don't think that's in question here. And you very kindly gave us an update a few weeks ago, didn't you, about the state of things? Would it be fair to say that your mind hasn't changed a great deal since then?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to what it was back then. But like I said, I started to get to that point now where I feel sorry for Steve Bruce in times, and then I actually think back to myself and go, no, he's still a dick. He's still, because he's only just now let the media come back to St James's Park because he blamed all of them for the bad run of form last time.
What, he blamed the media for the COVID outbreak?
Well, no, not so much that. It's more so he blamed them for the bad results that we had towards the tail end of last year that put us near the relegation zone before Joe Willett come. He basically just said that all of their negativity is putting it towards his team, and that doesn't make the team play well.
Oh, are we talking about the Matt Ritchie saga? Yeah.
So that was a part of it, but he basically banned most local tabloids as well as main tabloids away from the managers' meetings before and after the game.
I mean, that's a bit like apologising for something when you've been caught, right? Because the Matt Ritchie thing was a true... It wasn't like they were making it up.
Yeah.
It was a true...
He thought they glorified and made it worse than what it was.
Right, okay.
But, yeah.
I mean, in this game, interestingly, you had your moments. I mean, better decision-making from one or two of your players, Willock included, and this result could have been very, very different.
Yeah, I think... I'm a very firm believer that Graham Jones is very much the driving force on the attacking side of things, which we have looked dangerous and we have looked good at parts. And I think St Maximin's coming along much more than he did last year. He's starting to develop, trying to find that killer pass, that assist, instead of levering it every single time or running at it every single time.
Yeah, Troy Orey syndrome.
Exactly. And I think if you compare the two of them, you can say St Maximin's miles ahead of him just in his product and what he's trying to deliver. But the problem is, if you don't have that Callum Wilson player there, you saw with the game against West Ham and everything like that if he's going to deliver that ball, he knows Callum Wilson's going to be there to meet it. He hasn't got any support in this game.
Joe Linton's got to be the laziest off the ball player I've ever seen.
That match of the day when they went into detail about Joe Linton, I mean, it was unbelievable how lazy he was.
Maximum going across it in, and he's still like
he's just jogging.
But that's the thing, like Callum Wilson's there at that point, and you know he's going to be in that 6-yard, like 12-yard area to smash it in. Whereas Joe Linton's not a centre forward. No. As much as he tries, bless him, I've got to that point now. I'm just like, oh, poor Joe Linton. I think if he played,
it cost you 30-odd mil, 40 million, whatever it was.
He was a club record signing, I think, and if he still is. I think if he played him on the wing, I don't think he's that bad on the wing. He's not as reliant to do stuff on the wing. Whereas being that centre forward, when you then put him against Callum Wilson, it's chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think if a team is seeing, they got Joe Linton up front today, we're in for a treat today. If Maguire and Varane must be thinking, he's there at the office today.
Well, they didn't have to mark anybody, did they? Because he was never there.
He was there.
The first game of the season when Wilson sort of battled between two, was it West Ham?
Yeah.
He battled between two West Ham defenders and got his head on the ball. Mm-hmm. That's what you need week in, week out.
That would be horrible to play against. As a defender, that's the type of person that's horrible. And he gives you niggles all the time.
Yeah. And you don't know where he is. Defenders are constantly, their mind is on other things. If you don't give them something else to think about, they can focus solely on what they're doing. Mm-hmm. You want them to focus on what the striker is doing, and that will make mistakes happen. In Joe Linton's defence, I don't think it helped that they did the comparison on him just after they told everyone how amazing Ronaldo's movement was. So it was a bit of a sort of a contrast in the two players. But there was that moment where Willock, I think, when the one time Joe Linton was in the right place, maybe that's just because Joe Willock just assumed he wasn't going to be there. When he could have rolled it to the side. There were one or two other moments. I thought the goal, Manquillo took his goal really well.
Yeah. Lovely.
Really good goal, really good breakaway. Almiron did so well on that goal as well.
He was just great. He just took it from defence to forward. And like I said, we've got those main players that Almiron, say Maximin, Wilson, and I'd arguably say Dubravka in goal as well. If you miss one cog in that, let alone 2 or 3...
breaks the entire machine, doesn't it?
Because our defence, I've said to you before, you have a look at how well Rafa's doing at Everton, with money, with his structure and what he can do. Our defence has gone from one of the best when Rafa was there, looking at blocks for shots, tackles made, clearances made. We're now at the bottom.
Yeah, and the fourth goal that United scored, albeit it was a great team goal, but they had an awful lot of space in areas of the pitch they shouldn't have had.
Yeah.
So, and to your point, you've got, unfortunately, the worst defensive record in the league, or averaging 3 goals a game at the moment.
Yeah.
You look back to teams like Fulham a few years ago, you can say as much as you like how good they are going forward. If you keep conceding that goals, your strikers are not going to get you 3 or 4 goals a game every single game to bail you out. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So if you don't fix that, it doesn't matter how good your, say, Maximin is or Wilson is, you're going to be in trouble.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, just one final thought, just to meet myself up to speed more than anything. What's the latest with the sort of takeover and the legal stuff that's going on?
What takeover?
Well, okay, I suppose that answers it, really.
Well, basically, there's always background movement. They updated themselves on Company's House and everything recently, but I think it's more smoke and mirrors behind the scenes. They're still in another legal lawsuit between Mike Ashley and the Premier League at the minute. One of them's been suspended until early next year, I believe. This one, he's still trying to contest, but I doubt anything will come from it.
So is the end goal here to get this Premier League decision overturned so that the sale can go ahead?
Essentially, I think either what Mike Ashley wants is for the Premier League to give him money to say, right, we shouldn't have stopped it. Here's the money for the compensation. Then he can sell it cheaper to somebody else.
Because he's had something, yeah.
So then he gets his money back that he's put into the club. Because have you seen the ridiculous statement they released about the transfer window?
Whether they'd spend lots of money or something.
Basically, they said that they can only put so much money into one source of the club and can't put it into multiple areas. So they've used all of their money to bring in Joe Willock. And the only other money that they could bring in was selling other players.
Right.
And we've only technically sold one because the rest of their contracts run out.
But surely, part of finances is that if all those players are gone, you
have wages.
You have the wages that are now freed up, which you could then, work around and put some of that towards transfer budget.
You'd like to think so. So,
I mean, I've played Football Manager enough times. I know there's a bar slider where you can move the wage budget and the transfer budget around.
I think Mike Ashley's firmly changed it round the other way. So.
I found it interesting on Match of the Day as well when Gary Lineker asked a similar question to Alan Shearer. He didn't hold back.
No.
He just said, Newcastle were hopeless.
Oh, yeah, I mean, Alan Shearer must hate going on Match of the Day when Newcastle are playing on Saturdays.
Yeah. Like I said, obviously I love Alan Shearer and I think he is a diehard Geordie and he will always support the club. But what he doesn't support is the hierarchy behind it. I mean, it's even petty things, I think, because when they put Shearer in charge when we got relegated for the last 8 games or whatever it was, they had a bitter argument and that's why he didn't carry on in the Championship and they brought in Chris Hughton. And to spite Alan Shearer, he changed the club outside St James's Park, which was known as Shearer's Bar, to Club 9. And it's just little things like that. That's the type of bloke he is, and that's why the locals hate him.
I still remember when he first came in, and everyone thought it was brilliant because we had this club owner who was sinking pints in the grandstand. And it was funny for about 2 weeks before everyone realised, actually, you're an owner of a football club. You should probably be behaving, in a more professional manner.
Like I said, what epitomises my kind of take on Mike Ashley is that he brought in Joe Kinnear, who referred to half the players as different names. He called Johan Kabay Johan Kebab. And that is in a press conference. It's written down, honestly, he then scouted a player, Joe Kinnear did, that was actually already playing for Newcastle. He said, we've got to sign this player. He's brilliant, we've got to sign him. he's already in the squad.
Who was it?
Shane Ferguson, who was the captain of the Northern Ireland football team.
Oh, man. Oh, dear. I have to say, I mean, me and Dan have said on a few occasions, we do feel sorry for Newcastle fans because it's got to that point now where it's the fans that are suffering. And it's...
When your big signing is someone who already played for your team.
Yeah, it's a bit underwhelming, isn't it? I appreciate that he's, he is still a new signing because he was only on loan and you're hoping that he gets the same, or he can produce the same sort of form as last year. But it's a gamble, right? I mean, look at Lingard. There's nothing to say that if we'd signed Lingard this summer that he'd be anything like he was last year. He's obviously playing well for United, but he's got, far better players around him with respect to West Ham.
Problem is, it's like Will said when he was on the podcast last week, like, everybody else has improved, whereas Newcastle, they haven't improved because they've just signed someone that was already there.
Yeah. The prime example of that is when Rafa brought Kennedy on loan. The first it was same as Joe Willock. He was scoring goals, he was assisting, and he looked class. Brought him on loan again for the second season, and he had the worst game I've ever seen against Cardiff. And we had a 90-minute penalty to win the game. And I've never seen a penalty like it. And he's just fluffed it. It's probably nearer the corner flag than it was the post. And it's 90th minute, and you're just looking at yourself, and you're like, why?
Yeah, I think West Ham had, with Carl Jenkinson, we had him on loan one year and he was absolutely outstanding.
Unreal.
And then I think did we sign him or I think we might have got on another loan. And he barely played that season. He was awful.
Was he at Arsenal?
Yeah, and then he went back to Arsenal for a bit and then he ended up in the Championship, I think. And I think he's just disappeared. He's almost like a Jack Wilshere. He's just kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
So, right, anyway, let's move on from the painful Newcastle
Gladly.
Let's talk Palace Spurs. Shame Fran's not around because I'm sure she'd love to talk about this game. The last remaining 100% record has now gone, and in quite emphatic style. And despite the fact that I think the red card did change the game, I don't think it would have changed the outcome because I think Palace were very good value for this, even before that red card. So let's... I suppose it's worth noting as well to Spurs, they did have a lot of injuries and people weren't around. They had, just looking at my notes, they had Son, Bergwijn, who were both injured on international duty. They had no Lo Celso, Romero and Sanchez because they all defied the Premier League or the rules from their clubs to not go out. Brazil players got away with it because they were allowed to play, but the Argentinian ones didn't. And then it got worse, of course, because Eric Dyer hobbled off during the game as well. And it sort of says a little bit about your team when actually you're saying that Eric Dyer hobbling off is a negative because he started the season okay, I guess, but he's still not a sort of player that you'd think going off is going to have a huge impact on the team. Anyway, but let's talk about that red card moment. Let's talk about the two yellows, I suppose. What do we make of the first yellow card, gents? Because I think there was a player down injured.
Yeah.
And I think Tanganga took exception. I think it was Lucas Moura that was down.
Yeah. And
Tanganga clearly wasn't best pleased with Palace playing on. To say it was an agricultural challenge might be the best way to say it.
I've definitely done a couple of them in my time, for sure. But yeah, I think he's just taken it to a point where he was just so angry that they didn't respect the rule, the unwritten rule. If somebody's down, you kick it out. But to be fair to Palace, the referee hasn't told them to do anything. So
that's the thing, right? I mean,
you got to play into the whistle.
Yeah, players always expect it, don't they?
Yeah.
I can understand if it's a horrific injury or like a head injury. Obviously, it's given, but you don't have to.
No.
I mean, footballers must know that 9 times out of 10, as you say, there's not a serious injury there. The players are staying down because they know they've not got the foul, but they don't want to get straight up in the fear of looking stupid and everyone knowing that they're effectively trying to buy a foul. But I almost respect Tanganga for doing what he did because normal players might have just tried to trip him up or done a tackle, a bad tackle. But he's just gone in and done a full Roman Reigns spear on the man. Could that have been in the aftermath? And Zaha obviously, he was absolutely irate with this.
So Tanganga just sort of wrapped his arms around him and Zaha was almost trying to get him off him.
So, lots of handbags. But could there have, there was a few times where hands were raised to faces. Could there have been a red card in this?
Well, should it not have been 2 yellows for Tanganga?
I also thought this.
For the tackle, which is a yellow card, and then Zaha obviously got a yellow for the sort of tangle. So surely Tanganga also gets a yellow for that tangle.
If you're a neutral, like I said, my in-laws are Spurs fans, so this was fantastic. I was away with them, so I was like, oh, yes. But for me, I think in that sort of situation, I think the referee's probably done the right thing in terms of spirit of the game to keep 11 players on there. It's like, look, you're going to do anything else, you're going to be off. But this is your warning. I think it's probably the best thing.
Yeah, I agree.
to do.
I'm glad he didn't give 2 years.
So have we seen
although he did get sent off in
a
it.
very rare example of referees using common sense?
Yeah.
I think, to be fair, for me anyway, I don't think there's been many decisions where I'm like, have they not seen that compared to what last year was like? I mean, we've been outdone. Like I said to you with the West Ham game, I think we've been outdone by VAR a couple of times already this year. But apart from them, I can't think of any glaring, like horrendous decisions from the refs so far. And I think they've tried to let as much play on as possible.
Joe Morton would probably disagree.
Well, he would do, wouldn't he?
If that was any other, if Chelsea weren't involved in that game, he'd have a different opinion. I think even Joe would begrudgingly admit that. But I mean, in this case, it didn't really matter because 5 minutes later, Tanganga put it right and took out Jordan Ayew with a ridiculous lunge. I mean, I don't think it was a dangerous challenge, but
and you can sort of see as he slid in, he's tried to like curl himself up. But you can't slide in when you're on a yellow card like that.
No, and then obviously the penalty happens. I think all in agreement that was a penalty. Do you think?
It was so strange that he ran in with his arm full out like that.
Well, it
wasn't even sort of down by his side or anything. He had his arm out like he was indicating.
I think it's a weird one. I think we all play football. I think there are times where if you're a defender and you're going to close a ball down, often your instinct is to try and turn your back on it. So I wonder if the action of turning his back has done that and his arms sort of come out at the same time. I don't think it's a natural position, but I think I've seen other players do it at times.
I get that.
But I also do think it's a stonewall penalty. I don't think you can argue the point.
I think players know now to just keep it by your side.
Yeah, you see a lot of people going like
behind their
sort of
back,
grip their hands behind their back and stuff. Yeah.
I think people know
I think that's
now.
just the safest thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, if your arms are down by your side, I mean, like if somebody's about to boot the ball into the box and you're right in front of them, I think it's fairly natural for a lot of players to sort of do that as they put their arms in. So I don't think that's a penalty. I'm saying do that as if people are seeing the action I'm doing on a radio podcast. But yeah, they put their hands up to block their face. They might put their hands, in the wall on a free kick. They might protect their privates, etc. But yeah, I think the position his hand was in, I don't think anybody can complain with that. Zaha dispatched it to complete a very good performance from him. This was, in my opinion, probably the first time I've seen Zaha turn in a performance like this for a long time, and probably the sort of performance that earned him all these links with Arsenal and other clubs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Palace would be pretty desperate to see this Zaha a bit more often, won't they?
Yeah.
Well, I think with these other players they've brought in, with the likes of Gallagher and Edouard, I think that will bring out the best in Zaha.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird, isn't it? Because I really thought Palace were going to struggle this year massively. I thought that it was a real gamble bringing Vieira in.
Oh, definitely.
But all of a sudden now, they've had, they drew against us and looked pretty good. They've beaten Spurs comfortably. Edouard looks like a bit of a steal at 15 million or whatever he was.
Yeah, 15.
They've got Gallagher in, he was superb at West Brom last year. All of a sudden things are looking pretty rosy for Palace, and all of a sudden, maybe I'm not looking down the bottom end of the table. Maybe we're now looking nearer the mid-table and beyond.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, if the likes of Edouard sort of starting games and they all click together, how Palace do, because I mean, you'd think Spurs would obviously be a tough game for them. I know that red card did change things, but
even before that, I mean, from Spurs' point of view,
well, at half time it was Spurs hadn't had a single shot.
No, they had 2 shots in the entire game.
Yeah.
And I think there was a stat that came up that I think it was the fewest touches from Kane. In fact, I don't think he had a single touch in the box all game.
A single touch.
I think that's the first time in his career that's ever happened. So, I mean, that tells you that's both a massive compliment to Palace and a huge red flag to Spurs that they couldn't even create. Because, yes, they got some injuries. They still got some very talented players in that team. So, yeah, I mean, is it just, do we just, they've had a decent start. I had a little cheeky look on some fan forums and bits and pieces for Spurs, and the general feeling actually is not as positive towards Nuno as you might think.
They remind me of like a Mourinho team. They seem so defensive. I mean, they won their first 3 games, but they're all 1-0. And they've actually conceded more shots, I think, than any other team in the Premier League. So they are, although they've kept clean sheets, they're actually taking on a lot of shots.
Yeah.
One of those teams was Wolves, who can't seem to hit a barn door at the moment, although they did win 2-0. One of them was their own goal.
Yeah, but it's taken them 70-odd shots to get there.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the sort of, the scores are a bit more kind than they actually
doesn't tell the
have
full
been
story.
playing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether to look at this game and think this, as you say, this result was sort of coming, or whether this is just a bit of a, a result of the fact they got these players missing, and maybe just they caught Palace on a good day. It's not unheard of for a team not in the upper echelons of the Premier League to turn in an amazing performance and turn over a big team. But yeah, I mean, when I'm looking at these fan forums, Spurs fans are all sort of talking about Nuno not playing the right formation, not playing the right personnel, not playing in the right way, as you mentioned, with the defensive style. So this could be one to watch, actually, whether Spurs have, as you say, flattered to deceive, and whether this is just a sign of things to come.
Yeah.
I think with that as well, where everything was negative anyway, like you say before with Mourinho, like I said, they haven't really had any good movement in the transfer window, in my opinion, for somebody to, which I think is crying out for, is to help Harry Kane. Because at the minute, to me, he looks like he's started to kind of do what Rooney did in his later part of his career, where he just kind of kept dropping a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper to receive the ball to then drive forward with it. Instead of being that guy he's been for the last, 5 seasons, where he can carry it, but he's also been within that 18, 20 yards where he can bang a shot off. Yeah. Whereas now...
But you're seeing him do that for England as well, so it's translating across to...
He was playing right back for England at one point during the Poland game. It frustrates me so... I hate watching Harry Kane. But I don't feel like he used to be that kind of striker that was dropping into, play centre-back.
Well, he wouldn't get away with that. If he ended up at City, he wouldn't get away with it there. Because, can you imagine him dropping in and trying to take the ball off people like De Bruyne and Gundogan? He's fuck off, go up front.
I know he's desperate to get on the ball, but, the amount of times I see...
But is that the whole thing with Spurs? They're trying to just give him the ball to do something, like a De Bruyne who can create stuff, when actually he shouldn't be that type of player.
The problem is he hasn't got the pace to get up the other end and sort of counter-attack.
Like Son or anyone like that.
There's a few times during, over the England sort of international games, England would counter, and we got players like Sterling, Sancho, whoever's playing up there, and Kane's just not quick enough to keep up with Sterling and that, sprinting through with the ball, and you end up not being able to do anything because your striker's still at the centre circle.
Trying to hold on for him to catch up.
Yeah. Do you think there's an element of trust in this as well? Do you think he looks at the rest of the team behind him and thinks, I need to go in there and help them because I don't actually think they're good enough to do it?
I just think he's a nice guy. He's just trying to, like you say, help everyone out as a team player. Because for me, that it stems from when Roy Hodgson put him on bloody corners.
Yeah.
For me, like Alan Shearer put it bluntly, it was like, if anybody told me to take a corner, I'd tell them to fuck off. I'm in the box, heading it, going for whatever. Whereas he's that type of guy to be like, I'll take the free kicks, I'll whip the ball in, I'll take the corner, I'll run back and right back and tackle it and get the ball back again. I think that's not what you need.
I think he just wants to be on the... It reminds me of, FIFA, the Be a Pro, where you're just always out of position because you're just
trying to get the rating
up.
You
want to get the ball. You just want to be on the... It's boring when you're watching the other team kick the ball around. You're just give me the ball.
Because the AI was never as good on your team as they were on
and you're just sort of sliding in and trying to get the ball back, and that's what it reminds me of.
Definitely.
I mean, what do you think Kane's thinking right now? Obviously, the failed move, is well documented. He's now had to effectively swallow his pride. He's had to put out this statement to say he's fully committed. I think ultimately there is an element that he is effectively lying to the Spurs fans because quite clearly he wanted to leave and he's had to, swallow his pride and stay. So he's had to try and get the Spurs fans back on side, which thankfully for him looks like for the most part they are. But when Spurs turn in performances like this, when they're playing in quite a defensive manner, I wonder what he thinks. I mean, are we going to see the same Kane this year? Do you think he's going to be playing within himself a bit?
Problem is as well, I think he's missed his sort of boat.
Yeah.
I think, United have now got Ronaldo, Chelsea have got Lukaku. I think City are going to sign Haaland because his release clause will kick in and they can get him for 60 mil.
So where else is he going to go?
Where's Harry Kane going to go?
Liverpool aren't going to sign him.
No, Real Madrid are apparently in talks. Well, they want to sign Mbappe and his contract's running out.
Barcelona got no money. PSG don't need anybody.
No.
No.
So
I don't know where else
is he going to go? I mean, there is nobody.
The Premier League either.
No, there is no other team in the Premier League that he would sign where he would who would pay the money, but also would fulfil his ambitions of wanting to be a trophy
Champions League.
Because he's still got 3 years on his
I
contract?
believe so, yeah.
He signed like a
takes him.
ridiculous 6-year deal, didn't he?
Yeah.
To Daniel
And he's
Levy.
got
that takes
the
him-
worst chairman for negotiations.
Good for your club, but
Yeah.
terrible for everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying, I was watching a YouTube, I was talking to Dan about this before we started recording, that City have gambled on the fact that if they don't get Kane, they can spread the goals out amongst their team enough to challenge this season, and then they'll go and get Haaland. But I wonder, did Harry Kane do enough to try and engineer that move? Could he have really down tools and forced Levy's hand, or do you think he doesn't want to destroy that legacy with Spurs?
He's in between, I think, because
Yeah.
he obviously made his statement by not turning up to training. And I think then obviously the media have then gone, oh, Harry Kane's not going to training. Oh. Then everybody started comparing him to then Pogba about how he just tries to engineer his moves. But
Pogba always trained.
and that was their kind of...
And Pogba never actually came out publicly. It was always his agent that came out.
Yeah, and that's the thing that people then started to kind of compare and be like, hold on, Pogba didn't actually say anything or do anything.
Yeah.
Kane has publicly come out and said he's not training. What
Would have been great if it had done an Odin wingy and just driven to
just waiting. If Harry read that next to him.
There was a thing that was going around on Facebook that I thought was quite funny. His brother, is it Charlie? His brother? The caption was that I can't believe that Charlie gets up in the morning knowing he's got one client. He's got his own sports media company and he goes to work in a suit and he's got one client, which is his brother. I think that's brilliant.
If you can, why not? Why not?
Right. Anyway, just before we head for a break, I just wanted to touch on a story which I thought was absolutely hilarious that I heard on TalkSport, or I saw on TalkSport's socials this week. Ray Parlour. There's often stories about ex-footballers talking about things that happened back in the day which probably don't happen these days. I mean, I don't think we'll be hearing stories like this anymore. And Ray Parlour said there was a player, I forget the player's name, Igor something, began with S. And basically they brought him in on trial, and Martin Keown hated players coming in on trial. So what they decided to do was to try and wind him up, try and get him to nibble. And Ray Parlour and Dennis Bergkamp had a 50 quid bet to who would be the first one to get in the nibble. Ray Parlour had the first half and Bergkamp had the second half to do it. So literally they were playing in this trial game. Every time this guy made a pass, it was a 5-yard pass, the most simplest of passes ever. Ray Parlour was up going, "Oh, what a player this guy is! What a player! You've got to sign him." And then he couldn't get Keown to bite. In the second half, Keown was on the bench, and Bergkamp apparently he played like a 20-yard pass, but it was a complete slice. Had no idea where the ball was going. It landed at the feet of another player, and Bergkamp just sort of stopped, gave him like a standing ovation, like right next to Arsene Wenger, saying, "We've got to sign this guy. What a player he is." Keown bit massively at this point. And I was saying, no, he's always dropping too deep. He's got to push out, etc., etc. And then a couple of weeks later, based on the fact that Parlour and Bergkamp were bigging this guy up, Wenger actually bought him for 100 grand, and he got a 4-year contract out of it. Which is absolutely fucking outstanding. I think I can't remember if I shared this on our socials, but if I haven't, I will. You should go and see it. It's absolutely just genius. We're going to head to a break. When we come back, we've got a new segment to introduce, and then we'll get into a couple more Premier League games before we get into the quiz. See you in a minute. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the show. So yeah, this new segment that we have. So Will from the Rugby Blindside last week, as he sort of said, he deals with a lot of the media side of things, stories behind the scenes. He's very kindly offered to do a couple of minutes each week for us, just going through some stories that people probably haven't heard about. So each week we'll play a clip that he's going to very nicely record for us, and we'll just sort of go through it in a little bit more detail if required. I think it's pretty awesome. So let's give this a listen, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
Hi everyone, Will here. In this new segment on the Kickabout podcast, I will be bringing you the latest news and stories from the business side of football. We'll be looking at sponsorship deals, club finances, stadium developments, as well as wider themes across football to keep you up to date with what's happening off the pitch in the beautiful game. To start off, in the last week or so, FIFA published a report on international transfers in the men's game during the past decade. This was the most comprehensive review of transfers across the globe ever produced. This report stated that from 2011 to 2019, a total of 133,225 international transfers and loans of professional players took place, and a total of $48.5 billion was spent on transfer fees during this period, of which $3.5 billion were agents' fees. In other news, Bolton Wanderers were delighted to confirm that the club has now met its obligations and agreed settlement arrangements with its unsecured creditors pertaining to Football Ventures Limited, who acquired the club from administrators 2 years ago. With this issue now being resolved, it has meant that the club has avoided a 15-point penalty as well as additional fines. Good news all round for Bolton Wanderers. Across the Channel and into Europe, UEFA has announced the signing of a groundbreaking partnership with bwin to become an official partner of the UEFA Europa League and the newly formed UEFA Europa Conference League for the next 3 seasons. Speaking of the partnership, UEFA Marketing Director Guy Laurent Epstein said, "The partnership with bwin allows UEFA to engage more openly with the sports betting sector, giving greater access to market intelligence and support from both a sports integrity and a commercial perspective." Staying in Europe, Miguel Angel Leal has been named CEO of La Liga Tech, the new entity created to help the sports and entertainment industry to take the next step in its digital transformation. His role will be to lead the global growth of La Liga Tech, which already works with numerous clients across the sports and entertainment industry, such as Dorna Sports, Sky Mexico, and the Royal Belgian Football Association, to develop the commercialization of digital assets for the use of other sports competition. That's all for this week's roundup. I'll be back next week to share more off-the-pitch stories, news, and insights from the world of football.
There we go. Thank you very much for doing that, Will. We were listening to that off live, if you like. Obviously, the one big one out there was the story about the FIFA finances and the report into the transfers. $48 billion on football players in the last decade. 3.5 billion is agent fees, which I assume means 3.4 billion is Mina Raiola's from Pogba deals. That is an obscene amount of money, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about when people always whinge about the amount of money in football, that sort of report doesn't really help, does it?
Not at all. But like you say, for me, it just makes me laugh how much goes to these agents and what do they actually do? Is it just like an estate agent when they haggle you for a little bit more money for the next house?
I mean, I don't particularly have a problem with agents per se, right? I don't mind them having a management team looking after certain aspects of their career. That's fine. I mean, that happens in all walks of life. But I do have a problem with the amount of money that they demand because, yes, they do a good job. Yes, they're trying to get their clients the best deals. It won't just be football deals. It'll be sponsorship deals. It'll be other bits and pieces. But for people like Mina Raiola, I mean, he is the obvious example here, but he's by no means the only one. When Pogba went to United from Juventus for 90-odd million, apparently he got half of that. Apparently the transfer deal was only about 45 million. In the end, and 40-odd million went to Raiola. So when you break these sorts of deals down, I mean, it might sound amazing that Pogba was 90 million, but according to what I read, the actual fee for Pogba himself was only 45.
It's the problem. These agents, they use these players as ransom, don't they? I mean, like I've seen with apparently, because Haaland is also Raiola's
unfortunately,
client.
yeah.
So apparently, like Haaland sort of was up for going to United, and United wanted him. But Raiola saw it. If he went to Dortmund first, they'd get money from that, and then he could go to a bigger club. So they'd be getting two contracts
big
rather than going straight to like a United or a Real Madrid. Yeah. The same with other sort of clubs. There's I think it was the same with Pogba, and he got into United, and then he said he was going to get into like a Real Madrid or PSG, etc. And then again, that's another like a double contract rather than straight to Real Madrid.
Yeah, I don't have a particular problem with Raiola wanting a payday from this, but I don't think that football agents should be allowed to take this much money because it just, you take these big agent fees out of it and all of a sudden football finances take a big step in the right direction.
It annoys me on Football Manager, to be fair, when they ask for like 7.5 million. I'm like, Why?
Yeah.
I don't want to give you 7.5 million of my transfer budget.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't played Football Manager for a number of years, so I don't think the agent fees were in the game the last time I played. So anyway, thank you for that, Will. We'll have some more from Will next week. Let's move on and talk Leeds Liverpool. We'll rattle through a couple of games before we get to the quiz. In the end, a fairly routine victory for Liverpool, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
And frankly, it could have been much more than 3 if Mane could learn to either pass or shoot properly. I mean, he had 10 shots alone. Leeds only had 9 at the point the stat came up anyway. I don't know how it finished up in the end. Now, of course, most of you will know that this game was marred by a pretty horrible injury to Harvey Elliott, which is doubly sad, not only because of the injury, but just because he's such a young player and he's had such a bright start to this season, breaking into that Liverpool team, and now facing a fairly considerable amount of time you'd expect on the sidelines. Klopp visibly, emotional, and after the game, I know there's been a bit on Facebook and Twitter and whatnot about Klopp's reaction to the fans, the fact that he went onto pitch and spoke to the referee. I do very much get into this. I buy into the fact that I do think Klopp goes over the top when he talks to referees at times. Yeah. But on this particular occasion, I think you have to give him a bit of a pass. Yeah. Because he's just seen one of his young players that he's nurtured or helped nurture, and he sees them with their ankle facing the wrong way. That's going to affect you.
Massively.
So, but one of the questions that's come out of this is about the punishment. Now, they obviously didn't show the replay, so most people like myself had to rewind it to watch it again. What did you think of the challenge and the punishment? Did you feel like the punishment fit the crime?
Do you want to go first?
I think it's been a hard one. When you watch it again and again, and in hindsight, when you see how bad the injury was, you could probably say, yeah, I think the punishment's justified. But for me as a player, it doesn't look like he's gone in maliciously to injure him or get a technical foul. He's tried to win the ball. He's come in from behind, kind of scissored him slightly. So when you have a look at it in that kind of context, I would think it's a booking. But I think because of what's happened, it's got to be a red in my eyes.
Dan?
See, when I saw the challenge, I thought it was a great challenge. And to me, it's one of those challenges where the crowd, applauds because he's sprinted back and sort of... It's one where you try to wrap your foot around, catch the ball, and the player just sort of trips over.
Well, it's worth noting the referee did not give a foul initially.
No, yeah. I think the fact that he's broken his ankle or his leg or whatever it was is the reason he got a red card.
Yes.
And then you can say it's dangerous play. He's broken his ankle, but
this is
I feel like there's other injuries, where players that's happened and the same, a red card's not been given.
I feel like you can look at this from two sides here. If you look at the letter of the law, and one of the things that's always talked about is, have you endangered the safety of another player? Now, if you look at it by that letter of the law, you could definitely make an argument for saying that yes, therefore it is a red card, because you absolutely have, based on the fact of the injury that's come out of it. But at the same time, for me, the leg that he went into the tackle with wasn't the leg that caused the injury. It was the trailing leg that was just on the floor, which is part of a sliding tackle. And it's just a complete freak accident that Harvey Elliott's ankle has got caught. I mean, he could do that challenge another 100 times and his ankle might get caught but wouldn't break.
And I think it amplifies it, the fact that he is like a young teenager. But I feel like...
And obviously the reaction of the Liverpool players, they were in shock. Salah was visibly quite stressed and trying to get people to come on.
Because he broke his ankle, I don't actually know what he has broken, but...
As far as I know, it's a dislocation at the moment. Right, I don't know if there's been any further damage. He's got an operation
had that bad injury, let's say it's dangerous play. Every sliding challenge is potentially dangerous.
Yeah.
You can win the ball and it's still badly injure a player.
I mean, you look at, there was Liam Cooper 10 minutes after that when the play restarted, did exactly the same thing on Sadio Mane, got the ball the same way. Mane went down, got caught, but again, no foul was given, no injury happened, and therefore we carry on. So I can see both sides of the argument here, but if I had to come down on one side of it, I don't think you should just straight up punish somebody because you think it's the right thing to do because of what the injury has happened. Because that would, I I'm trying to think back to the Jibril Cisse back in the day.
Oh yeah.
When I think he was running down the wing against Blackburn, I think it was, and there was just this horrible accidental tangle of legs which resulted in his leg snapping, which is one of the worst things to ever watch. Watching football, ankle dislocating is bad enough, but a leg snapping is possibly the worst. And I think, well, if we're going down this road, we're saying that, you know, if an injury like that happens, therefore it's a red card. You know, that is completely, like, literally wasn't even a tackle; it was just a tangle of legs. So, do we say that that's a red card as well? Like, where do you go? Where do you draw the line on this?
Yeah, like I said, it opens a can of worms, doesn't it? Like, depending on what aspect you take from it. But for me, it was just the fact that he did come in from the behind sort of angle, and then the referee then thinks, is he in control of his body? Like you say, with the trailing leg, is he in control of that?
Yeah.
To then it connecting.
Well, we suspect that VAR was the one that gave this.
Yeah.
Because the referee, to the best of my knowledge, never went and looked at the monitor. He obviously didn't think it was a foul at the time because he didn't give one. So it must have been VAR that had a word in his ear.
Well, the
and said,
commentator said apparently he was always going to give a red card.
Was he? I mean, if you're not going to give a foul, that means
away, isn't it?
Exactly. The instinctive reaction is to not blow for a foul.
They only stopped because Salah sort of waved.
Proper animated about it.
I think the referee probably at that point thought that it was your standard football going over trying to buy a foul, but in reality this is like the boy who cried wolf situation, isn't it? The referees, it's a very difficult job for referees to try and work out, are you actually injured? It's very, unfortunately in these situations it is very easy to tell, because often if there is a player near, you can visibly see, okay, this is serious. Anyway, we wish Harvey Elliott a speedy recovery. Let's move on. What about the game itself? I mean, as we say, what have you made from Liverpool in these first 4 games?
I think they've kept three clean sheets. The only game they didn't was against Chelsea, and that was a penalty. So defensively, they look very strong. And we know that defensively, they're also very attacking, and any of their players can score goals. So I think it looks like we're going to have that Salah and Mane fighting for the Golden Boot again, which is interesting.
Yeah, Mane's gone full Salah mode at the moment, isn't he? I mean, there's a friend of mine who's a Liverpool fan, and he's actually said that he can't put his finger on it.
Yeah.
But he thinks that there's just something not quite clicking at Liverpool yet, but he can't put his finger on it. Is he thinking maybe just from the fluidity of the play, the fact that they've not been quite so free scoring, that they've had to be under the cosh for a bit against teams like Chelsea? Again, granted, it was the red card changed that. But do you think that Liverpool are going to mount a serious title challenge this year, or do you think they're just going to be another Champions League finisher in the end and not really get that close?
I think it will be tight. I think, like you say, you have a look at the Uniteds, the Chelseas, have all recruited well. I think Liverpool have always been a bit of a dangerous team with the amount of attacking talent they have. Like I said, they've got arguably the best right back / centre mid in Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think he probably is the best right back in the world at the minute. And then you've got Andy Robertson, who doesn't stop running. I think they've got the supply chain to mount a serious attack. And like I said, now they've got Van Dijk back, and Matip seems to be the best centre-back in the world at the minute. For some reason,
when he's playing with Van Dijk, he looks unreal, doesn't he?
Exactly. And I just think at the minute...
Still got Joe Gomez to come.
Konate.
Konate, their one signing this summer. I wonder, we've talked about whether they've missed a step in the same way that City have. They missed a step with the striker. Have Liverpool missed a step with not signing a Wijnaldum replacement? Bearing in mind they got rid of also Shaqiri. Oxlade-Chamberlain is an injury waiting to happen. Naby Keita hasn't really done it consistently for them, so they're literally left with Henderson, who's, again, older, injury-prone, which leaves them with Fabinho, Thiago, and Naby Keita, effectively. That's their three. I wonder if actually Klopp didn't sign somebody because he had a lot of faith in Harvey Elliott. And now, obviously, we've had this injury. It's completely unfortunate, and the timing, obviously, with the transfer window closing just a couple of weeks ago, that now, maybe, depending on the result of this injury, maybe he does go looking for someone in January.
Sorry, go on.
I think with Liverpool, with the way that Klopp drills his players in, he's still got Firmino as well. I know he's not the all-and-out goal scorer that others are, like Lukaku, like Cristiano Ronaldo, but the way that they can play once they do get ticking, I think they will be hard to beat this year.
Yeah. So I think Liverpool are a better team with Firmino than Jota. I think Jota weakens Salah and Mane because
he's too similar to them.
Yeah, I think he's a goal getter. He wants to be scoring goals, and all three of them are almost battling against each other.
Yeah.
Whereas Firmino seems to just be happy to drop off and be the playmaker for those two, who almost sort of play as strikers when Firmino plays.
Yeah. For Leeds, 17th, 2 points from their opening 4 games, -7 goal difference. Again, we're at the stage of the season where 1 or 2 wins and things look very different all of a sudden.
Second season syndrome.
Possibly so, and they've got the joint second worst defence in the league with Norwich. But they have had a tricky start, though. United, Everton, Burnley and Liverpool, and with the exception of Burnley there, those are 3 teams that have had good starts to the season, very good starts to the season. So do we just have to say that we perhaps haven't seen enough from Leeds in those other games where they might be, stand more of a chance of getting goals, or have teams worked them out and actually they are set for a tough season? What do we think?
I think a bit of both. I think teams will have worked them out, especially I think like the first game of the season when United sort of hammered them. I just kind of saw it coming just because, we beat them 6-2 last time. I think everyone knows that Bielsa is an all-out attack.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember if it was the commentators or Match of the Day or whatever it was, but they were saying like he's going to have to change his approach for these big teams like Liverpool, United, City. He can't go all-out attack against these teams because they know how to play against them now. They've had a season to work them out, and even the sort of lower teams, they know that if they can weather the storm at the back, they've got it so open at going forward that they can score goals.
Defensively, Leeds do look lacking, and I know that's been a recurring theme for Leeds fans, that they're not, as much as they love Liam, is it Liam Cooper, one of their defenders? I'm pretty sure they don't think he's good enough to be the sort of main central defender in their team. Their chairman's come out and said that he wants European football within the next 2 or 3 years. It sounds like they're going to be doing some work at Ellen Road to improve the stadium. Many chairmen have come out and said this. The West Ham chairmans came out and said that when we moved to the London Stadium, we'd have Champions League football within 5 or 6 years. We almost got it last year, in fairness. But I feel like Leeds have got an awful lot of work to do, recruitment-wise and tactically, to get to that. I know they had a great season last season, but they were riding high. They were new to the league, and I totally agree. I think teams are going to work them out, and I think they already have.
Yeah.
So, what do we think represents a good season from this year? Will Leeds fans expect in the hierarchy? Will they expect their top table finish? Will they want to be knocking on the door of Europe, or are they just going to be happy to consolidate this year and see what they can do?
I think you have a look at the squad, man for man, against other teams, and it's not up to, I don't think, top half of the table standard. I think other teams have recruited really well, and I think for them, anywhere like
what do you mean they bought Dan James?
30 million.
And you love that as well.
I loved it. I can believe it.
I should imagine this is the same feeling you had as when Newcastle sold Sissoko to Spurs for 30 million.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But I just think with them, like I said, Dan James being like their kind of person to bring in, I just don't see them doing anything more than mid-table with a cup run as a success for them.
I know they have had hard fixtures, but Bamford hasn't really done it for me yet. I just don't. Even FPL, like I'm toying with, do I put him in my team? But I'm just like, he's just not really doing it for me. I don't know if I trust him.
I've thrown him in for the next games because Antonio's now banned, so I took him out. I looked at Leeds' next fixture. I think they're playing Newcastle, isn't it, on Friday? And with respect to Josh, I do think that Leeds
will... You're going to captain him? Is that what you're saying?
He's in the team. I'm not captaining him, but he's in the team. But against Newcastle, with respect, they are going to create chances. Yeah. And, it will be key. It will be interesting to see... Yeah. Is Bamford the same Bamford from last year, where he will, he will take these chances, or has he been a bit of a one-season wonder in the Premier League? So, as we said last week, I don't think he's good enough for England. I think that was very evident in the game that he played, which is no bad thing. Not everyone can. You can still be a great club player and not be quite good enough for international level. I do think Leeds are going to have to just sort of understand that last season is not going to be
this
season. Yeah, absolutely. And talking of seasons that haven't really got going yet, Arsenal finally did. But it wasn't, I mean, I know they're playing Norwich, but we have battered them. Absolutely rinsed them on this show over the last few weeks. So I do want to give them a little bit of credit where credit's due. They did create an awful lot of chances. They looked stronger, but we have to rein it in. It was Norwich, and it was a very scrappy goal that won the game. So what do you guys take from this? What will Arteta and Arsenal fans take from this game?
I found it funny that Arteta was acting as if they'd just won like the Super Bowl.
I mean,
he was so emotional, and I feel like he knew that if he lost that game, he was getting sacked.
Well, I mean, so he said in the post-match interview, he said that this was the best week of his career. I mean, I don't know who he's trying to kid. I mean, bearing in mind, they've had an international break, so a lot of his players wouldn't have even been around. And you've just played one of the worst teams in the league and beaten them by a 1-0 margin from a scrappy goal, and you were saying that's the best week of your career? I mean...
Hasn't he won a trophy with Arsenal as well, didn't he?
He won the FA Cup.
So you put that in the context, beating Norwich 1-0 is better than winning the FA Cup in your career. You've got to look at yourself in the mirror, mate.
I mean, they had 30 shots as well, and they scored that goal that bobbled around and then Aubameyang put in from about 2 yards
I mean,
out.
it very much... I mean, I know we joked and said it was a bit of a relegation 6-pointer, very tongue-in-cheek when we said that. But the game actually had that sort of feel to it.
Yeah.
Like, Arsenal just needed to get that 3 points. And in the end, they did. So they've got something to build from. Aubameyang getting the goal, which, again, it's a tap-in, but it will help him, help Arsenal fans be a bit more reassured that, he is going to maybe put a few in this season for them. And I must say, I'm getting a newfound respect for Arsenal fans because they did the chant against City where they said, you're nothing special, we lose every week. And then when they went 1-0 up against Norwich, they started singing, we are staying up. So I've got, that's the sort of humour and banter I can get on board with.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Me and Dan have talked at length about Arteta and the future. Josh, your opportunity, the floor is yours. What do you think of Arteta and the direction he's taking Arsenal? Do you see a future for him at Arsenal?
For me, with Arsenal, I've never really liked them as a club personally. I think the whole Highbury period was fantastic, and I respect the club with that when they had the likes of Henry, Vieira, Wenger. But since it's gone into the Emirates era, for me, it feels like it's a tale of two clubs. And the way that Kroenke has decided to run the club, I just don't see the enjoyment for Arsenal fans.
Do you see similarities with Newcastle?
Maybe to some degree, where the fact that we've got owners who visibly maybe don't care about the club, but you have a look at their recruitment this year and they have spent a lot of money, and you can't say they haven't backed him this year because they have spent money. And I think for a club the size of Arsenal to have a manager who's not tried and tested at that sort of level as a manager, at least with Ollie, he has maybe not to a great success. At least he's managed in the Premier League and he's managed at clubs. This is Arteta's first job as a manager, and you're managing Arsenal. And for me, I think there's just a lack of experience with it, and I just don't see him excelling as a manager. Like I said, like I said earlier, you win the FA Cup, but you think a 1-0 win against Norwich is good enough for the fans to get behind you with. I don't.
I look at their squad and you think of a club that used to have Henry, Lundberg, Pires, Van Persie,
Vieira.
Yeah, you take Aubameyang out of that team, I don't see a single star player in that team.
No, and we said that there was a reliance on those younger players, and in fairness, Saka I thought was very good.
Yeah, they've got some good youngsters.
He looked a bit more like the Saka from last season. Maybe that international break where he got the goal for England and maybe got that kind of closure on the whole European tournament. Maybe that's helped him. But I think Thomas Partey being back, I know he only came off the bench, but he looked very assured, and I feel like if they can keep him fit, I think he is actually more key to that team than anybody else, because Xhaka, I think, may have blown it a little bit. I don't know how many more chances Arteta's going to give him.
Because at the Euros, I thought he was class.
Yeah, he was,
He was unreal, and now he's just gone back to...
I think that's why Arsenal fans sort of welcomed him back, because I thought, okay, there is a player there. Let's see if he can bring that form back to
He
Arsenal.
just has that like Lee Catamol moment in him, doesn't he?
Catamol.
So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think, obviously, this is a big win for Arsenal. They've got their first win. They've got that monkey off their back. If they can follow that up with another win this week, I think it's Burnley this week, isn't it?
And then Spurs.
Burnley and then Spurs. If they can beat Burnley and then really turn up, I mean, Spurs are there for the taking as well.
Yeah.
So if they can win those 3 games, all of a sudden the media's attention is going to be very much taken away. They'll go and find another story to talk about, and it will maybe give Arteta a little bit of breathing room just to kind of step back and say, right, we've got them off our back. Let's now focus. Let's build something. We've won a couple of games. Hopefully we've got some goals. We've got a bit of confidence in the team. Maybe Ben White's settled in and maybe taking a bit of control of that defence. I mean, Gabriel was their man of the match of the weekend, and that tells you all you need to know about Norwich. If an Arsenal centre-back is the man of the match, bearing in mind how they've played so far this season.
I feel sorry for them, though. They've had the worst fixtures.
They have. I mean, I don't know who did the fixtures at the start of the season, but obviously they're not a Norwich fan. So yeah, we'll wait and see on Arsenal. But as I say, credit where credit's due. They did the job. They got the points which they absolutely needed. Now, job on. You know, you've got your start, Arteta. It's now down to you. You've got to pick up. If you go back to previous mode and you lose against Burnley, you lose against Spurs, then I think his head's for the chop pretty soon. So we'll see. Just touching on Norwich. I mean, my God, it's looking like a task for them this season already, isn't it? I mean, they have had an unbelievably bad run, but their next 3, Watford, Everton and Burnley. Everton obviously are flying, so that's going to be tough.
Yeah.
But they have to get a win from either Watford or Burnley, don't they? They've got to get going.
Yeah, I mean, they need wins from both, in my opinion. Everton, you can sort of say, fair enough if they lose. Yeah, but I think they've got to get 6 points from the other 2.
I mean, we've not really talked about Watford a huge amount this season so far, but they've been pretty, since that opening day win against Villa, they've been poor.
Yeah, that first game, I thought, going 3-0 up against Villa, I thought maybe they were going to sort of take the Premier League by surprise, but since then they've offered nothing. No.
I mean, one player that looks like he is going to be crucial is Brandon Williams. He made some crucial interventions and blocks at the weekend. Looks quite a player. He looks like he's going to be an important player for Norwich because he's going to have an awful lot of defending to do this season.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good loan move for him, actually.
Good experience.
Yeah, I mean, in this game, they've had 10 shots on goal with just the 1 on target in this game. So they've I couldn't say exactly what those 10 shots are, whether they're clear-cut chances or not. We said goals might be their biggest problem this season, and already it's, again, caveating it with the teams they've been playing, but already it's proving to be a sticking point. They scored 1 goal this season, which was a penalty against Leicester. They've lost their biggest creator in Emi Buendia. This is going to be tough, isn't it? I mean, if Pookie, we keep saying, if Pookie doesn't fire, they're going down. It's as simple as that for me.
Yeah.
I think they're going down, to be honest.
I think, for me right now, I can't see anybody else finishing bottom other than Norwich. And I hate to say that, only 4 games into the season, and things will change, of course they will, but I'm just not seeing enough signs of life from Norwich to tell me. I mean, when you're playing against those teams earlier on in the season, go and have a go, go and create, go and just go for it. And I just haven't seen enough of that from Norwich in these games.
But they are just a yo-yo team, aren't they?
Yeah.
They must be so rich with all these
I did see a thing on TalkSport about them, they get parachute payments for going down, and then you get like 90 million for winning the championship and going straight back up.
It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Finally, let's talk Brentford-Brighton. Brighton's impressive start to the season continues. Another clean sheet, another win, which reinforces my decision to put Sanchez in goal for my dream team. And they're up to 5th in the league. I mean, I think they've probably dropped down 1 now because of Everton's win tonight.
Yeah.
And they left it late here. But Josh, what do you make of their start to the season so far?
Well, I think they've got a style of play that they want to play football. They want to get the ball forward as much as possible. And I do think they'll be in for a good season this year. I think they'll get top half. Maybe have a good cup run as well. Yeah, I like them.
Yeah.
As a team.
Does it? I don't want to keep going back to Newcastle, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
But when you look at player for player, Brighton and Newcastle, does it really put into stark contrast the difference between the ideologies, the sort of how the managers like to play, how they drill their team to play? You got Graham Potter, who's not an experienced Premier League manager. He's not really an experienced manager, full stop, to be honest, not at the top level anyway.
No.
Steve Bruce has been around for an awful long time, but you look at the difference in those 2 managers and how they've got their teams playing.
Yeah.
It is night and day.
Oh,
and it just proves that even if you don't have a top team, if you play the right way and get the players confident and on song, you'll get good results.
Well, and that's the thing, is that Like I said, if you had a look at Brighton and Newcastle now, if I asked you to say what type of style is Brighton, you'll be able to tell me.
Yeah.
If I ask you about Newcastle,
I mean, outside of being counter-attacking, but I don't know if that's more just because they're so open at the back that you're always defending that's the only thing you can do.
Well, exactly. And like you say, there's no clear definition of what we actually do.
No identity.
Or do well. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, Brighton do have some quality players, in fairness, but I wonder if their qualities are showing up because of the way they play.
I just think they're such a well-oiled team. Like, he was brought in to sort of play more attractive football, and that's what he does. He plays like a possession-based game.
Yeah.
And it's not a mystery that everyone has Sanchez in goal on FPL because Brighton just don't really concede goals.
They're so difficult to beat. I mean, we keep touching on Burnley about how should they show more ambition, and you've got to look at someone like Brighton. Yeah. They're showing some ambition. They're trying to play in the right way. They're bringing in unknown players, turning almost like the Leicester style.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you look at people like Basuma. You know, who heard about Basuma before he started playing at Brighton?
Yeah.
They've also, I know they've sent him out on loan, but they've got Seema in, which I think will be a good signing long term. Neil Maupay is starting to attract the attention of bigger clubs, which is obviously a good thing for Brighton. And I just think that people should look at Brighton as a model. If you're down in that area of the table, so I'm looking at Palace, I'm looking at Newcastle, I'm looking at Burnley. These are the clubs looking at Brighton thinking, well, if they can do it, why can't we? You know, they're all so petrified of getting it wrong and ending up going down that they don't want to do it. But Brighton have proven that you can do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think Brighton are just missing that clinical striker because their wins are 1-0, maybe 2-0. You very rarely see Brighton winning 3 or 4. Sort of.
No, that's true. And you know, we've caveated a lot this tonight with the fixtures and stuff, and they have had a favourable start to the season. Their next 3, have I got it listed down here? Leicester, Palace, and Arsenal. Yeah, so all 3 of those are going to be tough. Leicester are, you know, they haven't started the season brilliantly, but they're still going to be a tough side to beat.
Yeah.
Palace are reinvigorated right now. They're in the mood. And Arsenal, I mean,
that'd be an interesting one actually.
It will be an interesting one.
Brighton beat Arsenal last season. I think both times.
So it'd be depending on what Arsenal do in their next 2 games to see where Arsenal kind of sit. You know, are they coming into that game in red hot form, having won a couple of games, or are they, are they on the back foot again? Let's talk Brentford. Their unbeaten start to the season is over. Another side that's had a favourable start to the season, but they've not really.
Well, if you count Arsenal as a favourable side.
Well, I mean,
most teams have.
I think with the Arsenal one, I mean, I think the perfect storm expression I think works there. You know, it's their first game at their new stadium with fans there. First game in the Premier League against a team that you can get at. Even if Arsenal are in good form, you can still get at them anyway because of that's just Arsenal's identity these days. So I think that that was a perfect game for Brentford to start the season off. But Arsenal was still a big enough scalp for these lower teams to be really up for it. But yeah, I can't get a read on Brentford at the moment. When they played West Ham in the pre-season friendly, I thought they looked really good.
Yeah,
they created so much, but I've not seen.
We played and drew 2 with them pre-season as well. That was a game where it was like 4 screamers.
Oh yeah, I remember that. So yeah, I mean, one player that I guess maybe we thought we'd see a bit more of is Ivan Toney. I think he's come in with this unbelievable record-breaking season in the Championship. Almost scored a screamer in this game. In fairness, but maybe the expectations on him are not unfounded. That'd be the wrong way to put it. But if he doesn't score, maybe Brentford are thinking, shit. If he doesn't score goals, who else is?
I think Brentford are going to be similar to Brighton. They're going to be really hard to break down.
Yeah.
Because they've
Sheffield
United
had
quite a few clean sheets. Pretty much like Sheffield United actually. Yeah, I think they're going to be hard to break down, and they do have the strikers that can score goals. Because against Arsenal, I thought, was it Mbeumo?
Yeah.
I thought him and Toney actually linked up really well. The way Toney sort of just fed.
bullied. Bullied the defence.
And Mbeumo, I think, was actually quite good in this game. He was just so wasteful. He missed a couple of really good chances, and those at this level, those are the chances you absolutely have to take if you want to stay in the league.
So when Brentford first came up, I sort of pipped them to go straight back down because I thought, they didn't win the Championship, they didn't finish second, they just about got there. Well, maybe it's a bit harsh to say just about. They got there through the playoffs. And usually those sort of teams struggle, but to be fair, they've looked the strongest out of the 3 that came up.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see. I think their home form is going to be vital. I think the fans being there, they'll be so buzzing for this season, being in the Premier League and being back in the ground for the first time since it was built. So if they can nail their home form, then away form won't be as important. And I think they will. I personally think they will survive. I think it'll be close, but I think they'll survive.
Yeah, I think they will.
So, right, okay. Let's.
Are you doing the social media thing or not?
Oh, yes. Thank you very much for reminding me. I completely forgot to put it on my running order. So we did put out a question earlier. Me and Dan had to do it in Fran's absence because she was away on work. We spent most of today trying to work out what to ask because it felt like the weekend was devoid of any real massive talking points outside of the Harvey Elliott one, which I didn't really want to talk because I think that's been talked about enough. So I just went with who do we think is going to get relegated this season. So while I bring up what the fans said, Dan, Josh, who do you think at the moment is your 3 to go down?
I'll tell you what.
I wonder why you brought me on this week. It's all starting to picture out now.
I think maybe we can say which 2 do you think are going to go down? Because I think we all universally agree that Norwich are going to be one of them. So which 2 others do we think are going to go down?
Well, I do think that we will be there or thereabouts. So I think Newcastle will be down there. And I think it will be a tight one for the last place, but I think I'd say Watford.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think Norwich, Watford. I've just got that. I say Burnley every season. And we were talking about this before we started recording. Burnley always seem to get out of it, right? Sean Dyche always does a job and gets them out of it. But I just wonder if they'll get a bit of the Sunderlands about them. Yeah. Shop in the bargain bin basement every year, don't really improve things, status quo every season. Eventually, other teams are going to keep improving and outgrow you. And I don't know if Sean Dyche can continue to defy the odds with that team and get away with it each season. So I think that they will be close. So I'm going to say Burnley, Watford and Norwich to go.
Yeah, for me, Norwich, I think, will come bottom. Watford, I believe, will come 19th. And I just feel like, if Newcastle lose Wilson and if Maximin goes as well, I just can't see them surviving the way things have been going at the moment. Yeah.
If they don't tighten up defensively, I don't think it matters if Maximin and Wilson are there or not.
Agree.
They're in trouble. But how long do you think Bruce will be given if things don't improve?
But this is the thing. He is the scapegoat for Mike Ashley, so he'll keep him as long as he wants to.
Well, because Mike Ashley knows that Steve Bruce is going to shoulder all the media attention. Yeah, and keeps it away from Mike Ashley.
He might even, some fans in our forums do think that he does it to spite the fans. He's going to keep Steve Bruce because
they know the fans hate him.
Yeah.
Yeah, not good. Just quickly, Fran said Spurs. Pete thinks Norwich, Burnley and Leeds. That's an interesting one. What do we make of that?
Very bold statement.
Yeah, it's a very differential.
I can sort of see why you would say that right now because of the amount of goals they conceded and they've been a bit open. But I think once they've played teams around them, I think they'll be well away from trouble.
Yeah,
personally.
I mean, it's a bit like saying Arsenal, isn't it? Like they've been poor, but Arsenal aren't going to get relegated.
I mean, put it this way: if in 10 games' time Leeds have still not improved, then maybe. But right now, I don't see any evidence to suggest that Leeds are going to stick around in that bottom part of the league.
To be fair, he does say he would put Newcastle, but
he's scared of you, Josh. He thinks you're going to lay him out.
I'm a nice guy. I don't know why people would say something.
One person who's not afraid of you though is Joe Morton.
He's not afraid of any man.
He said Norwich, Newcastle, and Burnley. Pete challenged him and said you're going to cause carnage. Joe responded with Shearer knows I love him, but his club is a shambles between them and Watford.
Well, it's nothing that I've not said, to be fair to him. So yeah, I don't disagree with you.
Right, there we go. Thank you very much for the comments. Let's get into the stat. Down the stat, man.
So Salah became the 30th different player to score 100 Premier League goals, with only 4 players reaching the milestone in fewer appearances, which was 162 games. But can you tell me the 4 players to do it in fewer games?
You can go first.
Alan Shearer.
Yeah.
Alan Shearer, number 1.
I will go with Henri.
Yep. Number 4.
Aguero.
Number 3, sorry, yeah. And
Rooney?
Number 2, no.
Ooh. So we've got Shearer, Henry, Aguero.
Yeah. So there's one more,
One
right?
more. Who's second?
Oh,
Michael Owen.
No.
I think now.
Trying to think of some of the sort of how recent are we talking?
Fairly recent.
Fairly recent. Okay. Who's
Drogba.
No.
been big players? Van Persie? No, he
No.
wouldn't have been. He didn't really get going, did he, for ages?
Do you want a clue?
Go on.
Tends to play right back nowadays.
Right.
Sometimes CDM. Bit all over the place.
You've lost me.
You've
there.
completely lost me. So a striker that's second in the all-time quickest to 100
I'm
games.
messing around. He plays in a white.
Kane.
Oh, Harry Kane.
I see.
Sorry, I get it
I see
now.
what you did there.
Yeah, I'll give you that. God, you really threw us there. Jesus Christ. Right, okay. Excellent. Right, we will then get... So we are 2-2?
Yeah, we are, yeah.
2-2. So
around.
Josh has very kindly done the quiz this evening. So let's get to it. So I don't even care that we're sat here really awkwardly listening to that. 'Cause it's just brilliant.
Fantastic. Well, I do apologise if I've used anyone that's already been used, but
I don't think anyone would remember.
I can't remember what I did yesterday. So
Yeah.
right. So the first player is Sol Campbell.
Used him, mate.
yeah, no, we haven't. Don't we have? Well, have we?
I think we had, I think it was maybe one of the first. But I still can't even think.
Okay.
Go on, how many?
5.
Oh, okay.
Who's
You're first,
in me?
I think,
Okay.
yeah.
I could play safe here because I'm pretty sure we'll both have the
Yeah.
same
I think you're going
number.
to stitch me out.
It's whether you can do the other ones. I'm going to say 3
Alright,
and hope you can't get the
go
4th.
for that. Who else has he played for?
I could take a stab at the 4th, but it would be quite an educated guess.
Yeah, give me 2 seconds and then I'll say 4 because I might as well go for it.
Well, you know I've got
4.
I've got
I'll
the 3.
say 4 because I know you know 3.
Yeah.
All right, go for it.
Spurs.
Yep.
Arsenal.
Yep.
Spurs, Arsenal, Pompey. I was
Yeah.
trying to think of which teams I just said. I want to say Newcastle.
Yep.
You played in Newcastle.
Yep.
Wow, good man. I have to give you that. I didn't think he had another Premier League club in him. I thought he was because was he at like Colchester or Notts County, someone like
Notts
that?
County.
Notts County, yeah.
Oh, black and
Yeah.
white.
Yeah, he was the player who actually got Chris Hughton the sack.
Was he?
Yep. So
1-0 to you, Dan.
Oh, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, you got it on my serve as well.
Yeah.
okay, so the next one is Dimitar Berbatov.
Ooh. That's a fun one.
You're
Yeah, me first.
It's 9
God,
clubs.
I don't think I can get that close. No, I don't know where he went after us.
Go on, Dan. Need a bid.
4.
Oh.
I'm going to risk it and say name them. I can do 4, but I can't do 5.
Oh.
I was bluffing. Spurs.
Yep.
United.
Yep.
Bayer Leverkusen.
Yep.
I don't know where he went after us. I think I'm just going to name. Where did he go? Where did he go? Where did he go? I'm pretty sure he was in Italy. Lazio?
Nope.
No.
He was at Fulham.
He was at Fulham.
Fulham. I knew he went somewhere else. I knew it was a Premier League team.
So he started off at CSKA Sofia,
Yeah.
then
I'm
Bayer
trying to think of some
Leverkusen
Hungarians.
2, then Bayer Leverkusen main team, Spurs, United, Fulham, Then after Fulham, he went to Monaco.
Ah, yes.
That was my other guess as well.
And then he went to PAOK. And then he's finished on Corella Blasters.
Okay.
Corella Blasters.
Serie A. That's annoying. I know Monaco and Fulham.
Of course, it's very rare. 2 games against the serve.
Yeah.
Right.
Silly.
Where's our next man? Okay. Trevor Sinclair.
Ooh, okay.
God.
I think Dad's going to struggle with this one, so I
I
think
am.
I can be quite conservative with,
Okay.
with my bid. I will say 3.
Oh, yeah. I only know one.
You're not
No,
going
I
for
only know one.
Okay.
Go for it.
West Ham,
Yep.
Man City,
Yep.
QPR.
Watford?
Nope.
Don't even know one.
But with this one, there was a bit of a debate because when we got Blackpool, QPR, West Ham, Man City, Cardiff City, Lancaster City, then he has a question mark next to Squires Gate. So he may have played for them,
I mean,
he might not have done.
They don't sound like a professional team, to be honest, so.
So, what was it now? Was it 2-1?
2-1.
Chris. Yeah,
Yeah.
myself.
Right, where's our
I'm
next
annoyed
one?
at that Berbatov one. It's trash.
Next one is David James.
Mm.
1, 2, 3,
He's been
4,
everywhere.
5,
He
6,
has.
7, 8, 9, 10.
That's me. Isn't it?
Yep.
4.
Ooh.
I'll go 5.
Yeah, go on.
Oh. Go on then.
Right. Villa,
Yep.
West Ham,
Yes.
Portsmouth,
Yes.
City.
Yes.
I've got to think of a name now. So I did Villa,
Yep.
Portsmouth,
Mhm.
West Ham, City, Liverpool.
Well done.
Yeah, we've got Watford, Liverpool, Aston Villa, West Ham, Man City, Pompey, Bristol, Bournemouth, then Vesterman,
Yeah, know them, yeah.
and then
Managed them once on Football Manager.
and also another player who's played for Corella Blasters as
Oh,
well.
wow.
Where are they?
Is this like a Middle Eastern team or something?
It must be.
Yeah.
It must be. All right. Do we include loan teams as well? Or...
Yeah,
Yeah.
if they're a professional team they've played for, yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so we've got
I
Peter
think you've
Crouch.
won, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
Finish off.
Peter
One
Crouch.
More. One more for fun. Peter Crouch.
So it's my bid, isn't it?
We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Because he's played for multiple teams again.
It's so we really need to bring like pen and paper. It's so difficult doing it on your hands. Because not only that, the other person can look at you and see what you do with your number of fingers. I will start the bidding off at 5.
Ooh. Strong.
I think it's probably possible to do more.
Who's been that?
Actually, can I change my bid?
No, you've done that.
Very,
Very
very strong.
I think-
very strong from the
What
rule
did you
making.
say?
I said 5, yeah.
I think I could probably need 5.
You go for 6?
Well, I might as well, I know.
Yeah.
6? Can you do 7?
you do 7?
If you got 7, I'd like to listen to that.
I'll go. Do you know what? I'm going for
Oh,
it.
go
I'm
on.
going for it.
Yep, let's have it.
Right. Liverpool,
Yep,
Spurs,
yep,
Stoke,
yes,
Burnley,
Mm-hmm.
yep,
Portsmouth.
yep.
Again, I need pen and paper because I need to remember who I've done. I think I've missed somebody that I had in my head because I had the 5 and then went to the 6. Well, I'm just going to call out some names. So this isn't a guess. So Stoke, if I've already said them, it's fine. Stoke, Pompey, Liverpool, Spurs, Burnley.
Mhm.
Those are the 5 I've done.
Yeah.
Fuck, have I screwed up here? Have I miscounted? I could have sworn I had more in my head. Have I said Villa?
No.
I'll say Villa.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my 6th. 7th.
These must be loan ones, I reckon. I can't think of any other.
Was Peter Crouch at Southampton.
He was at Southampton.
Yes. There you go, that's my 7.
Well done.
The ones that you missed were QPR.
I feel like everybody was at QPR.
That must have been a Harry Redknapp
Yeah.
signing.
Norwich.
Okay.
And then he also went on
If
loan.
you say he was at that Cruella place,
No, he wasn't this one. The other places he was on loan were Dulwich Hamlet
Lovely.
and IFK Hustleham.
I think we played Dulwich Hamlet in a pre-season game for Valley, didn't we? Wow.
Yeah,
That's
well done.
probably my biggest win against you. It's now
Yeah,
done it. It's
probably
been a
is.
while since I've beaten you there. So I take the lead. It's 3-2. We're first to 10. So this looks like this could be
Shearer next week.
So Shearer will be back next week with 5 more players. Hopefully, if I get next week, he's staying. So. Lovely. Well, thank you very much for coming on, Josh.
Pleasure.
We will see you next week. Thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye.